Hey, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. My name is Amy Kochek with Amy Kochek Creative. For those of you who have been following me or following this show, you know that I am all things story related. I believe that your story is the most powerful asset that you possess. With Amy Kochek Creative, I do ghostwriting. I teach workshops about the power of your story and how to use your story to get personal breakthroughs in your life. But I've encountered so many people who have amazing stories and they discredit their stories, or they dismiss their stories, or they have a lot of excuses as to why they're not sharing them. But one of the things that I've decided with my social media platform is to use as many opportunities as I can to allow other people to come on here and share their stories, because those are the stories are what connects us. It's what gives us hope. It's what lets us know that we're not alone. We're not the only ones going through what we're going through. So thank you so much for joining, and happy Friday to you guys. I can't believe that July is almost over. Like, July is almost over. Crazy. But today I am super excited because I have Christina with me. One of the things that's so fascinating about Christina's story, and I wrote this on the summary of this episode, is that today we're going to be talking specifically about an aspect of mental illness. And this is something I'm super passionate about because I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, and something that is very stigmatized. And many people who are in the struggle feel alone. And, you know, just as society as a whole, we've started to embrace the concept of mental illness and actually starting to talk about it. So I'm really excited to give voice to somebody that has a personal experience with it. So Christina, thank you so much for joining us. So
thank you.
Give us an idea of who you are. Tell us about yourself, any relevant information you want to share with us.
Okay, well, I'm Christina, and I am an holistic medicine practitioner, and I decided to specialize in the treatment of anxiety after realizing, after so many years, that I had suffered from anxiety for most of my life. So I decided that is what I needed to do, because if I look back into my life 10 years ago, I can't recognize myself. It's completely different, and it's like, I don't know, it's like being alive now, and I've been like scared for such a long time. So I decided that at a certain point, thanks to many things that happened to me that gave me the possibility to do this, then I decided that this was my way. I just wanted people to experience life, because for so much time I didn't.
Yeah.
And I found out it was possible. So that's what I do now. And I'm based in Barcelona, Spain.
Mm-hmm. Exciting. So can you take us to that moment? So we're going to be talking about, in all of the interviews, we talk about the pivotal moment, something that happened in your life that changed the trajectory of your life. So take us to what was going on before that pivotal moment. Who were you? What was going on? And then what happened in that moment that kind of shifted your life?
Okay. I'm going to talk about two pivotal moments, because one was just like an eye-opening realization, and the other one was actually what made me able to overcome my problem. So for all my life, basically, I just struggled all the time. Even if it wasn't really visible, and even if it wasn't for most of it, I didn't have these strong symptoms, physical symptoms. I just had this way of feeling constantly scared of everything and everybody, and had such an aggressive image and such an aggressive attitude to defend myself from what I don't really know, from feeling hurt, from feeling abandoned, from feeling rejected, all these kind of things. I had lots of anger, and that was like that for a long time. And I always thought that the problem was that the world was not fair, that the world was not okay, that people were not to be trusted, and everything like this. But then when I moved to Barcelona the first time 12 years ago, I had like the worst. I touched rock bottom, and I started to feel really, really, really bad. I stopped sleeping, so I suffered from insomnia. And what was before sort of like a social anxiety that I kind of mitigated by being aggressive, it became so strong that, you know, even telling me, oh, let's go to this party with all these people would just paralyze me. And I would, you know, it was the thought of meeting new people was so scary to me. I couldn't actually talk to anybody.
Can I pause you and ask a question?
Yeah.
When you're having these moments, like these anxious moments, what's going on in your head as far as thoughts are concerned? Are you like creating scenarios in which you're going to be harmed? Are you thinking about, is it like self-degradating thoughts, like you're not a good person? Is it more so of the thoughts you're having of yourself or the people around you? Like, what does the anxious thoughts look like for you?
I think that most of it is so fast, and it's so underneath, and it's so like a part of you that you don't really realize exactly what is going on. I think looking back that it was more like self-talking, self-deprecating talking, but that it wasn't so obvious. Mm-hmm. It was just this irrational fear of doing things wrong, of being rejected, of appearing stupid or whatever, you know. And at a certain point, as I said, I always had this aggressive shield thing to shield me. But suddenly, when I moved here, I didn't have that anymore, and I just felt helpless.
Yeah.
So what you were saying before, when you were introducing anxiety, the thing is that I didn't even know that was anxiety. I didn't even know that was anything. I just thought it was something wrong with me or with the world or whatever, that, you know, I just couldn't feel like I fit in. Yeah, and I was feeling helpless, like,
yeah.
And I started to, when that started here in Barcelona, then I started to have all these very sad moments and cry, mm-hmm. and also victimize myself and like feeling completely helpless. So anyway, I decided to go the way that, you know, you're supposed to go. So I went to a psychologist, and then and at the same time to a psychiatrist to have meds prescribed, and that was okay in the sense that it helped me for a while not to feel that helpless. And then I decided that I got, you know, and all that I could get from these approaches. So I thought, okay, this is enough. And my psychologist actually, she agreed that that's all I could do, that I was fine. And the psychiatrist said the same thing. Look, you're fine. It's not that you're crazy or anything. You're just anxious and a bit depressed. I was like, yeah, okay, but I haven't slept in a year and a half, and I can't relate to people.
Yeah. What did that feel like? What did that feel like to know that you know that something's wrong with you, but then you have medical professionals telling you you're fine?
Well, I just thought, like, I don't know, there was something wrong with life.
Yeah.
In the world, you know, if the problem is not me, then it must be everybody else, or it must be the world. I don't know. It just felt like there's something wrong, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So, so the first pivotal moment happened where, for some reason, I started, like, when I abandoned therapy and medication, I started to read like all the self-help books available on earth. And I came across to this little book that I don't even remember what the name was. And it was just basically saying that the problem is not the world, but the way we see the world.
Mm.
And the way he described it, it just made total sense. And I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I felt in that moment, I felt like really like, oh, maybe I can do something about it, you know, instead of trying to change everything around me. Maybe I just have to change something inside myself, which is not really easy because that was like the beginning, the real beginning of the journey. So now when I look back and I think of that moment when I touched rock bottom, I actually feel really, really, really grateful. Because if I didn't have all those, you know, touchable symptoms, I wouldn't have done anything about it. So I would still feel miserable and everything, and you know, I wouldn't have moved.
What did rock bottom look like for you? Like, how did you know that was your bottom?
Because besides the fact of the way I always felt, now I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I couldn't talk to people. I felt like so scared that, you know, I just couldn't. I would just stay. I would like, and I had my boyfriend at the time here, and he is the most sociable person on earth.
Yeah.
He dragged me to all these social events, and I would just, you know, it was the worst thing on earth for me. I just wanted to sink and disappear. It was horrific.
Yeah. So you come across the book, and the book is telling you that the problem is not the world, the problem is how you perceive the world. So how do you start going about doing the inner work to start changing your perception of how you see the world?
Well, to start with, I kept reading a lot, and I think when that happened, that life just started to like put in front of me a lot of things that lead me to another, then another, then another, then another. So basically, I read a lot other books and self-help and all this stuff, and like when you go in a when you read all these books, everything sounds amazing, but then you never do anything they say.
Right.
So basically, every time I finished one, I was like, yeah, that's totally it. Wow, fantastic. And then, but I'm still there, you know. So I started to look for the first time at alternative medicines, which is a little funny because my dad is an alternative medicine practitioner, but he's also a doctor. So in my head, alternative medicine was only a thing for doctors that wanted to do more.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like for other people. So I started to look into it. I started a course in naturopathy here in Barcelona, and something started to make sense, but it still felt like this was something missing. And I had a job here that I've had for 5 years, so I started to become a senior there, and I felt like, oh my God, you know, this feels very, very narrow to me, and I just need to find something else. And suddenly I decided that I wanted to go back to Sydney in Australia, which is where I was before coming to Barcelona. And so I decided, booked the tickets, a couple months, 3 months later, I was in Sydney again. And that, like, the real pivotal moment started.
Yeah.
I arrived there with no plans, nothing. Didn't know what to do, and I just found a girl there saying, "Oh, you could work as a nanny here because they pay really well and you have experience." I was 30, so I thought, okay, you know, I people will probably trust me more than if I was 20.
Right.
So I started to look for a job as a nanny, and I found it almost straight away for this family. And this family was really, really amazing. And the mom there, she was very passionate about all kind of alternative medicines and spirituality, and she had all these books. And I would read books on Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and all these kind of things while the baby was sleeping. And then one day, talking to her, I just said, well, it's really amazing how, you know, you read all this information and you find that everything makes sense, but there's nobody that took all these things and tried to put all the pieces all together, because, you know, these might be different ways to see the same things, you know, different ways to approach the same thing. And how comes nobody found that? Because it's so clear to me that, you know, there are links here. And she said, actually, there is somebody that did that, and he's a friend of mine, and they have a clinic and a school here in Sydney. So you should have a look. And then I found out she was also a practitioner, an ex-practitioner in that particular modality. Mm-hmm. So I started to read about this, and I decided like that I wanted to do the course. And while doing this course was like really eye-opening, and that's where really my life changed forever. Like once you know certain things about the body, about your mind, the mind and body, and how they interact with each other, there's no coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're coming across this information, and I think it's so interesting that this follows the book that you read that said you're not changing the world, you're changing your perception of the world, right? Yeah. And then what follows that is this huge risk to go to Australia, and now you're exposed to information that's essentially challenging you to change your perspective on the way that you see treatment, the way that you see the world. So while you're reading these books, what is it? What's the core principles of the information that you're reading that's resonating with you, that's saying, oh, wow, I get this, or I need this?
Well, the thing that I found was that made most sense to me is that everything that happens in our mind translates into the body in precise paths, which maps we had for thousands of years, and they're really there. And when they are explained, like you really can see your pattern. Maybe it takes a little bit more to see it, but you can definitely start to look at people in different ways, because all the symptoms that they have, plus the way they behave, the way they move, the way they speak, their story and their traumas and everything, they just all, you know, pieces of a puzzle that make you recognize a pattern. And when you go straight to treat that pattern, then just things solve themselves. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what does that look like? Instead of, because what I hear you saying is that you're learning how to treat the pattern and not necessarily the symptoms. So how do you go about even discovering the patterns to treat when you're trying to treat someone with mental illness?
Well, it depends. It depends on many things. Like there's always a looking into the story of the person. Mm-hmm. So what happened to them, and when did that happen? When did their symptoms started? Because it's not the same thing if the symptom. If you tell me that you've always had this problem, or that this problem started right after you were fired from your job, or right after you broke up with somebody. Mm-hmm. So when it started, and then see what other symptoms have you had in your life, to because when you have this bunch of symptoms, when you have one symptom, it can be so many things. But when you have 2, 3, 4, 5 symptoms, you can start to really put it in a clear picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then also comes with how you are, how do you behave, what are your reactions, and all these things put together give a really clear pattern when somebody not only suffers from mental health, but anything else.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. And in my case, I think like my weak point was the heart, in the sense that I was so busy protecting myself that I literally closed off from the world. I closed the world off, and I couldn't relate anymore. And I was just busy protecting myself. I didn't want to suffer. But I was suffering so much more, because when you do that, when you close down, it's like they made this example that it's like you're holding a bunch of nails in your hand, and somebody comes and put the nails in your hand, and your answer is to clench your fist, as strong as you can,
mm-hmm.
to avoid pain. But that doesn't make any sense. So now, really, what I feel when something happens and I feel angry and I feel worried or whatever, is that I feel these nails in my hands. I feel like they're annoying, but I don't clench my fist anymore. So yeah, I feel this is really annoying, and this is it would be better if they weren't there. But I don't give too much importance to it, and I don't give too much importance to my beliefs about myself.
Yeah. Do you, when you were discovering your own patterns and the idea of you closing yourself off, did you recognize where the source of that was? Was that just who you've been, or was there a point in your life where that shifted?
Look, I got to understand, like, being in therapy, I analyzed that so much that I had a certain idea of where it came from. But after a while, really, like, when you know where it comes from, you know, that's it. You know, you can't do anything about it. And I think that going back there over and over and over again, it's actually dangerous, because it reinforces your story that you have in your mind. It makes you feel in a certain way. So it doesn't really matter where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
I knew where it came from, or maybe there's something else that I'm missing, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The important thing is to drop it, not to.
Yeah. So once you figure out that there's a course, a training for this new way of treating mental illness in a more natural way, do you decide to take the training?
Oh yeah, straight away.
And how did that start to change the way that you viewed yourself, mental illness, and then how you move forward from that?
Well, it's a very interesting journey, actually, because when you're studying these things, you think you have everything. Because when it's described, like in traditional Chinese medicine, that every organ has got an energetic function that works within a certain emotion, that they're affected by certain emotion, and that gives certain symptoms. You just go and find, like, okay, my kidneys must be rubbish, my liver must be rubbish, my heart must be rubbish. Everything is terrible. But then I just got, like, really interested in what was said and how it was treated, because I had the chance to intern in the clinic for a few months, so I could see, like, how people were treated, and then, you know, they started with some symptoms, and then they didn't.
Sorry, my dog's going on. When you were in the clinic and even with yourself, what does treatment look like? So obviously you're not using any meds, but what treatments are being used that are helping?
Well, the treatment works with the bioelectrical system of the body, which is the basis of traditional Chinese medicine. For example, the what is called the acupuncture meridians are really electrical channels where the electricity flows in the body and makes everything else work. So so basically, what we do is to affect this electricity with our electricity, because this is the fastest way to affect electricity is with other electricity. Mm-hmm. So basically, is learning some hands techniques that allow this electricity to flow towards the point of your hands. So while doing this, it moves from its static state, mm-hmm. because we have a problem in the body or in the mind when this is not flowing, so it's static. So by making it move, it started to move, and so then the body heals itself. So how does it look like? It's really, it depends, but there's very little touching. If it's touching, it's just, on parts of the body, or otherwise is working on the points of acupuncture points, but instead of using needles, I use my fingers.
And when you started going through the training, did you start using this on yourself? Like someone did the same thing, like using their fingers as far as acupuncture without needles? Yeah.
Actually, I had many sessions myself, because mm-hmm. Because you have to work through your stuff before you're able to work on somebody else.
Yeah.
So I had lots of sessions myself. I treated myself. I had lots of exchanges with other students. And then I learned how to meditate and doing a special meditation to relax the heart, and that helped a lot. There's a before and after that. There are many things that you can do. Obviously, like having sessions is what helped the most, but many other things that you can do yourself without going to session definitely help.
Yeah. What made you decide to become a practitioner to help other people? Like, where was that motive?
It was just the most interesting thing I've ever learned. Mm-hmm. So I've been to school and university and a lot, and read a lot, and that was the only thing that kept me there for 8 hours per day, like without blinking.
Yeah.
And I had so many questions, and it was just very interesting.
Yeah. When did, as you were getting treated, when did you start seeing a shift in yourself? Like, was it almost immediately, or does it some time?
It was gradual for me. It was gradual, but because I didn't actually have like. I had sessions as I was going. I didn't have like a treatment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was doing the course, and then I would have a session, then more course, and then another session, then doing the meditation, then developing my hand skills that also require that the mind to be stiller. So I think that gradually I started to see that I was taking things less and less seriously, and less personally, and I was feeling happy more and more.
Yeah. When you where you're at currently, do you find yourself still having anxious moments? Like, is it the anxiety is completely gone, or have you just learned coping skills, or treatment options that allow you, if it does come, to allow you to deal with it?
Well, I have stressful moments, definitely, but I never got back to that state of absolute fear and helplessness where I was before. I do have stressful moments, and once every few months, maybe I have a sleepless night, but I don't take it very seriously. I don't start to analyze it, and I just feel, okay, I'm stressed. I should meditate a little bit more today, or I should go into nature a bit and do other things that I know that bring me back.
Yeah. What was the difference? What was the difference between how you felt when you were taking meds and you were going to like a psychiatrist and a psychologist to the natural treatment? Like, what was the difference between how you were feeling?
Well, the traditional treatment, like the meds, helped me being a little bit less crazy, but I felt like I wasn't feeling much. I was stable, but I was like numb.
Yeah.
And therapy, well, it helped me, like, because it made things move a little bit in my head, so even also in my body. But I got to the point where I realized I was going over and over the same things over and over. So it was a lot of mental work, a lot of mental work. I was just analyzing and then analyzing my parents, and then analyzing my ex-boyfriend, and analyzing my brother, analyzing everything. And I just got to the point when I thought, okay, I analyzed enough. I'm not going up to here. It was fine, and then it's not helping me anymore.
Yeah.
And while this one it was different because there wasn't much. The moments where I improved a lot, it wasn't involving mental work at all. So it was really more like getting into the body, into the heart, and literally relaxing the heart and opening the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That makes everything else change. When you feel open and relaxed here, this just follows.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's fascinating. So from the whole experience that you've had dealing with anxiety, what do you think is like your biggest takeaway, like the biggest lesson that you've learned?
The biggest lesson that I've learned is that you can't solve certain things from your mind. And that quote from Albert Einstein that says, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that brought you there. And I would extend it, like, if your mind created a problem, you can't solve it with your mind. You can't solve it from here.
Mm-hmm.
You can put patches on it, Band-Aids, but you can't really solve it.
Yeah. So what's the solution? So if I have a problem and this mind brought me to that problem, so then this mind's not going to help me solve it, then what's the solution to that?
The solution is finding your way to the heart. Really finding the way to take this less and less seriously, and really find your way to the heart. That can come in different ways. But I think the most efficient one, besides having session, is a meditation that is called the Inner Smile meditation, which was made thousands of years ago just for this, to relax the heart. Because when the heart is relaxed, actually this was a meditation that was initially used in the martial arts, because they understood that when the heart was relaxed, you had courage and your movements are more fluent, because the chi, or the electricity, or the life force, whatever you want to call it, moves better. So you move better. And
wow.
you got instinct, you got courage, you got trust.
Mm-hmm.
So all things that you can't have when your heart is closed.
Yeah.
And then I found out an institute is called the Heart Math Institute. That is I think they are in California, based in California, and they're actually studying the heart, these things that the heart does electrically, and they measured the electromagnetic field of the heart and all of these things they are realizing, but scientifically, while this information we had all the way, you know, it's in the Sufi poems, it's in Taoist books, it's in Buddhism, it's in representations of the Buddha, is everywhere, you know, in our history. And yeah, I think as it was said during the course, like we are the first civilization in a civilization in thousands of years to think that this is a pump.
Yeah.
That this is just a pump. This is not just a pump. And yeah, I really invite you to have a look at that Heart Math Institute, because it's really great, the research that they're doing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So for someone that is watching and they might be having their own struggle with, maybe they don't even know, there's not even a label to it. They're just at a state that maybe you were at of just feeling like they don't belong, or it's like they're feeling like anxious, or I don't know, almost like outside your mind, and they don't know how to solve it, or they feel stressed or troubled. What is a piece of advice you can give them, or some encouragement that you can give them?
Well, I'll definitely suggest to try out this meditation that is called the Inner Smile meditation, that you can find on Apple Music or Spotify or even YouTube. And you have to search for Archaeoenergetics, which is the modality that I use, this modality that I was talking about, that I use. Inner Smile meditation. And it's just a guided meditation, and I really invite everybody to try it out. And you have to do it for a little bit, you know. It won't, like, if you do it one day and then never again, it won't make much of a difference. But if you do for a long time, for a couple months, you will definitely notice the difference. Then to spend time in nature, that's really like in contact, real contact with nature, that does miracles, really, and it's so fast. To take breaks every now and then, like every hour, to just feel your breath, just feel your body, feel your feet, all these kind of things. Just to start and put more and more your attention in your body, because if when the attention is in our body, is in our feeling sense, is not in our head. So yeah. So the more we start to develop the feeling sense, the more the heart relaxes and the more it opens up.
How do you spell that that meditation? What is it?
In Archaeoenergetics is ACUENERGETICS.
Okay.
Archaeoenergetics.
I'll look it up and put it in the comments. What's the specific meditation called again?
Inner Smile meditation.
Okay. Inner Smile?
Yeah.
Okay, Inner Smile. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay, Christina, tell us, how can we contact you? How can we get in contact with what you do? Do you have a website? Do you have an email? Or if people just want to contact you on social media to ask you questions?
Yeah, I've got a website, and it's called CristinaFerrario.com.
Okay.
With my name and surname.com. And the email, that is info@CristinaFerrario.com. And I've got a Facebook page that is called Anxiety Free. Let me check because I don't remember now. Anxiety Free by Cristina Ferrari or something like this. I put it in the contact. I'm sorry. I'm just.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can put those in the comments.
Yeah. And also Instagram. That is, I think this is the same one as the Facebook page.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your expertise. Wow. Yeah, definitely. You brought some like new light on treatment options and even just the struggle of mental illness. So I encourage everybody that's watching, if you are struggling with mental illness, you know somebody that's struggling with it, or just to educate yourself, this is a great interview to watch, rewatch, send to people, and definitely contact Christina. Look into that meditation. I know I'm always looking for like new meditations and things about the mind and the heart. I've never heard that before. The heart-mind connection, the way that you described it. So awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody else, have a wonderful weekend. We will be back next week on Monday. Have a wonderful